March 1919. A killer writes a letter to the newspapers. He promises to murder again, unless every home in New Orleans plays jazz music. And on that night, not a single person died. The Axeman of New Orleans remains one of America's most chilling unsolved cases. Between 1918 and 1919, someone stalked the streets of this city, breaking into homes under cover of darkness and attacking residents while they slept. The police investigation that followed gripped the nation, yet no one was ever brought to a courtroom. The Axeman was never identified, never caught, and never explained. To understand this case, you need to understand the city. New Orleans in 1918 was a place of deep contradictions, vibrant music pouring from dance halls while a world war raged overseas and Spanish influenza swept through crowded neighborhoods. Italian immigrant families had built thriving communities, running grocery shops across the city. And it was these families who became the Axeman's primary targets. The pattern was disturbingly consistent. The attacker would chisel out a panel from a rear door in the dead of night, slip inside, and assault the sleeping occupants with their own axe, often one found on the premises. The first widely attributed attack struck Joseph and Catherine Maggio on May 23, 1918. Joseph's throat was cut. Catherine did not survive. But here's what unsettled investigators most. There was rarely any robbery, nothing taken, no clear motive. Over the following months, the attacks continued. Louis Besumer and his partner Harriet Lowe were struck in June. On August 5th, a pregnant woman named Mrs. Edward Schneider was attacked but survived. Just 5 days later, Joseph Romano was bludgeoned in front of his nieces. He died 2 days later. The city descended into panic. Residents slept with axes hidden under their beds. Vigilante groups patrolled neighborhoods. And then, the letter arrived. On March 13, 1919, newspapers published a letter allegedly from the killer himself. He claimed to be a demon, not a human being. He declared himself invisible, beyond the reach of mortal law. And then he made an extraordinary promise. On the coming Tuesday night at 12:15, he would pass through New Orleans. Every home where jazz music was playing would be spared. Every silent home would face his wrath. Now, was it genuine? Was it a hoax? Nobody knew, but nobody was willing to take the chance. On the night of March 19, 1919, New Orleans erupted in music. Dance halls overflowed. Families who had never owned a gramophone borrowed one from neighbors. A composer even wrote a darkly humorous piece called The Mysterious Axeman's Jazz. And true to the letter's promise, or perhaps by pure coincidence, no one was attacked that night. The attacks resumed afterwards. Charles Cortimiglia and his wife Rosie were assaulted on March 10th. Their 2-year-old daughter Mary was killed. Rosie accused her neighbors, the Giordano's, of the crime. They were convicted, but Rosie later recanted, admitting she had lied out of personal hatred. The Giordano's were released. The final attack attributed to the Axeman came on October 27, 1919, when Mike Pepitone was killed in his bed. After that, the killings simply stopped. No arrest, no confession, no resolution. Some investigators theorized the attacks were connected to mafia extortion against Italian grocers. Others suggested a lone individual driven by unknown compulsions. A man named Joseph Mumfre was shot dead by Mike Pepitone's widow in Los Angeles in 1920. She claimed he was the Axeman. But no definitive proof was ever established. The case slipped into legend. More than a century later, the Axeman endures as a ghost story woven into the fabric of New Orleans, a city that refused to be silenced by fear and instead turned up the music. But the Axeman wasn't the only killer who taunted the press. If you think this case was strange, wait until you hear about the Zodiac, who sent coded ciphers that took 51 years to crack.